Let's get real for a moment. When was the last time you stood in front of the mirror and asked yourself, why do I keep letting people treat me this way? Not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to stay silent, to endure, to accept less than you deserve. Here's the hard truth. People don't decide how to treat you. You teach them. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you swallow your words to keep the peace, every time you bend to avoid conflict, you're sending a message. This is how I allow myself to be treated. And people will only rise to the standard you set or sink to the one you permit. You were not born to be a footnote in someone else's story. You are the main character in your own life. But if you keep saying yes when your soul is screaming no, if you keep lending your heart to those who return it bruised and unappreciated, you're not just losing relationships, you're losing yourself. The silent language of boundaries. People are always watching, even when you think they're not. They test your limits, push your patience, and measure how much they can take from you before you push back. If you stay quiet while your spirit roars in protest, they won't stop. Because people don't stop at the edge of your pain. They stop at the edge of your boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls built from anger. They're doors with locks. They're not about shutting people out. They're about deciding who gets a key. You've been taught that kindness means keeping your mouth shut, that love means enduring mistreatment. But let's be clear. Being nice doesn't mean being open for abuse. You don't owe anyone access to your peace, your time, or your energy if they only bring chaos in return. The difference between bitterness and boundaries. Some will mistake your boundaries for bitterness. They'll call you cold, distant, or changed. But what they really mean is, you're not as easy to manipulate anymore. Bitterness is loud, reactive, desperate to hurt back. Boundaries are calm, firm, rooted in self-respect. Bitterness comes from wounds that never healed. Boundaries come from wisdom. Lessons learned through silence that lasted too long, apologies that never came, and love that took more than it gave. When you finally stop shrinking to make others comfortable, you realize the peace you were trying to keep wasn't real. It was just the absence of conflict, not the presence of respect. The guilt of saying no, and why you should do it anyway. If you've always been the giver, the fixer, the one who sacrifices to keep others happy, setting boundaries will feel like betrayal at first. How could I turn my back on love? But here's the truth. You're not rejecting love. You're rejecting behavior that masquerades as love but steals your joy. Ask yourself, what have I been accepting just to avoid losing someone? Because if keeping them in your life means losing yourself, it's not a relationship, it's a sacrifice. And that's not love, that's emotional debt. When they say you've changed, the moment you start setting standards, people will accuse you of changing. They'll say, you're not the same person anymore. And they're right. The old you, the one who answered every call, swallowed every insult, and bent until you broke, had to change. That version of you was surviving, not thriving. The new you? That's growth. That's healing. That's self-love in action. The unshakable peace of boundaries. When you start enforcing boundaries, your life begins to clean itself up. People fall away, not because you push them, but because the environment you've created no longer feeds their chaos. Some people only love you when you're weak, when you're tired, when you say yes out of fear. But the ones who stay when you start saying no, those are your people. The ones who value you, not just what you can do for them. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're protection. You're not trying to make people feel bad. You're building a life where disrespect, manipulation, and confusion aren't allowed to live rent-free. Self-respect, the ultimate filter. Respect isn't something you demand with words. It's something you communicate with your presence. When you walk into a room, knowing your worth, people feel it before you speak. You stop begging for approval. You stop explaining your no. You stop shrinking to fit in spaces that were never meant for you. Self-respect means walking away from conversations that drain you, removing yourself from tables where love is conditional, choosing silence over arguments that only exhaust your spirit. Yes, it gets lonely sometimes, but lonely is better than being surrounded by people who make you feel alone. The power of silence. Some people will cross your boundaries just to see if you'll let them. They'll smile while they disrespect you. Pretend they didn't hear your no. Act like your limits are negotiable. That's when you show them with action, not words. If you say, I won't tolerate disrespect, but let it slide when it happens, you're training them to keep doing it. If you walk away when the line is crossed, they learn. People remember what cost them access to you. Sometimes, the only way to teach someone your value is to remove yourself from the equation. Final truth, you were made for more. You don't have to harden your heart. Just protect it. You don't have to become cold. Just stop being easily accessed by those who don't value your warmth. This isn't about ego. It's about self-preservation, emotional maturity, and the courage to say, I deserve better, and I will no longer settle for less. When you live that truth, you don't just teach people how to treat you. You teach yourself how to never betray your soul again. So stand firm, speak up, draw the line, not in anger, in power. Because the moment you stop accepting less is the moment they start giving more. And if they don't, let them go. Your peace is worth more than their presence.